The vast majority of artists cannot make a living from the sales of their work. I believe many of the current ones that are making a living will soon start to have trouble. The current art market is slowly contracting. If you compare the past decade in sales, it's more or less stood flat, little under 70 billion. But when considering inflation and other factors, you suddenly realize that it's shrunk about 15%. If to that we were to add the rising costs of maintaining an art practice, whether it's maintaining an art studio, a gallery, or participating in fairs, etc., that's gone up 30%. So 15% less sales, 30% costs up. That starts to suddenly generate a lot of pressure onto the middle areas. Middle areas that, if you compare them to any other current world industry, are suffering due to the efficiencies of a global market, automation, communications, etc. So if it's already pretty tough for artists in general to make a living, it is only going to get tougher. What can we do? I think we need to figure out a way to switch from the current art market in which we have a tiny, small elite, a wealthy elite that can purchase scarce, limited goods at a very high price, to a giant audience, a global audience, where everyone can participate, experience, and consume of the arts in a way that it is democratic and available for everyone, but by paying a small, tiny fee, a ticket, a donation, a subscription. Now, in principle, this would sound difficult to do, right? And in principle, for a lot of people, it might sound like it is losing the scarcity or the virtue of an artwork because of the sole fact that it was directly touched by the hands of the artist. Nevertheless, if we think about many of the current technologies, many of the current tools that we're using, more and more artists today are using computers and are using other mediums in order to represent their work and their ideas. The more artists continue to switch to digital mediums, the more that there won't be a physical trace of their hands, and the more we will value the trace of their minds, their ideas. This will free up work from being physical, from having to pay physical rent, to be shipped, to be insured, to be able to be digitally seen everywhere. And that's where I think we will start having more and more artworks that can suddenly now be experienced by everyone at the same time. It no longer makes sense to try and sell an artwork or to try and sell it for a high price when we're now in a market of abundance. We pass from a market of scarcity to a market of abundance. By the way, the market of scarcity before was limited by what an artist could make or by a founding process could produce. So you could only make so many replicas of a sculpture because after a while the mold just wouldn't function. Today, that practice is no longer justified. Today, the notion of wanting to keep something forever, wanting to have that piece stay forever in your space, is maybe more costly to the user in terms of their options, right? If I have so many options now in a very abundant digital world, why would I stick with one for the next 10, 20, 30 years? It doesn't necessarily make sense. Not at a time where songs last a lot less on the top one, where memes last less time, where fashion tends to be quicker and faster, and where we're all shifting quickly from one idea to another. So within that notion, what we would need is to have some sort of a medium that can nevertheless still replace the quality of an artistic experience, but now at a worldwide level. And I believe that quality can be achieved with augmented reality. Augmented reality as opposed to virtual. Virtual is the one you have a headset on and you no longer see what's around you. You only see what is virtually created. Augmented is augmenting your viewing. And now you can see elements within your own space, more importantly, within your people. So through augmented reality, we will be able to now see objects, sculptures, decorative elements, experiences, installations, as if they were actually in our own physical rooms, or go to rooms, neighborhoods, areas that are designed for these experiences. You might say, well, Sebastian, but those things don't fully exist, we cannot touch them. And the answer is very simple. When was the last time you touched art? Most probably in your case as an artist, you touched the art you made. Maybe you sneaked a touch of a sculpture here and there, but we all know, at least in gallery, museums, and other people's homes, we're not allowed to touch the art, right? It's almost part of our culture. Therefore, since it's the visual arts, we don't need to necessarily have to touch them to be able to experience. And therefore, a augmented reality practice would be primed to allow many more artists to be able to create anything they wanted. I mean, you don't have to obey the laws of gravity. You don't have to care about size, about restrictions of quantity. You could ship your work from one corner of the world to another. And now you no longer need to charge exorbitant amounts of money for the sales of your work. You don't need to limit your collectors to only those who are seeking a new piece for a new space. Your collectors, your clients can now be people that simply continue to go back to you every day. It could be no different from the clients of the music world or the film world that every now and then want to see a movie, that every so often want to listen to new music, and are willing to pay either a subscription fee or a one-time fee or some form of contribution to the artistic practice. In the case of music, it's had a bad rep, but mostly it's because there has been 3 or 4 main monopolies that have been in charge of the music forever. And that's why a system like Spotify can't really afford to pay their artists what they deserve. All of the contracts of the music industry with the musicians were already pre-arranged beforehand. So it's a Spotify dealing with Warner Music or with Sony and so on. Nevertheless, a new system could be primed to allow every artist to be in control of the sales of their work, to decide how many they want to sell for what price. A system of this kind, in an era of communications and technology, where we are having a harder time making an emotional bond to a particular visual image due to the high quantity of abundance and saturation of content, would make much more sense than that of the sales of unique pieces at high-end luxury price goods. I think this is something that we need to start thinking of, and we need to start shifting towards. This is something I'm personally very interested. Not because I believe that's the way I need to sell work to make a living. I'm very fortunate that for now I can do so. But because I love the arts more than anything, and I love what my colleagues are doing. And I'd so much rather we're the ones building a platform of that kind than have some sort of a corporation come in and take over. Think about it. Let me know your ideas. If you think there's some part of this thought process that is wrong, type it down. If you hate me, you may type it down too. Take care. Have a great Sunday.